like a reincarnation of that version, like how they do Sid or whatever. So like it's a deep cut for Final Fantasy fans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only reason I know about that character is because my cousin played that particular Final Fantasy, and I watched him play a long time ago, and I was like, oh, okay, that character. But as far as like anything else, I can't tell you. Like but that's about it. Like that's pretty much all they did. Oh, and they showed off the combat. They went more in depth with the combat as far as the things you can do. Uh, you are going to have like in certain instances temporary parties members, but you can't control them or anything like that. Um,
Yeah.
you have a dog that's going to going to be with you or whatever, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Like you can tell the dog to do certain things and shit like that, but yeah, but when you go into uh like your Ifrit mode or your summon modes are more like from what it looked like. I don't know if they're gonna be script like they did have the scripted battles like in Final Fantasy 15. I don't know if that's in certain instances or is it like a Devil May Cry thing where you can unlock your double trigger and it's I don't know if you play games like that, but you have like a special mode you can go into temporarily for like a couple of seconds. Like for Devil May Cry, it's called Double Trigger. Metal Gear Revengeance is called Jack the Ripper mode. Um, Almost like akin to when Sword goes into his blade or his drive forms. So you get I don't know if they're going to treat it like that where you can do it anytime or if it's only in certain aspects of the game. That being said, they did show that like Ifrit has combos and stuff like that. And there's also like a upgrade system that you can upgrade your character on and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty cool. It reminded me of like any kind of modern day um this spear grid or this grid thing really looked like fucking Scarlet Nexus's grid of how you can unlock stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a certain amount of points or whatever XP, and then you just unlock certain moves or whatever. Um, it's more so an action game than an RPG game. I can't really in good faith call this an RPG game. It's an action game with RPG elements and light RPG elements at
I'm
that.
here for it though. I'm looking at the
Yeah.
gameplay right now. I'm here for it.
Uh, so yeah, that's the thing. I think the game, like I said, I think the game's in the going into the right direction. They even have a mode for, which is very funny. They even have a mode for Final Fantasy fans, like hardcore Final Fantasy fans who don't play other games besides Final Fantasy, to where the game almost plays itself, and it's a story mode type thing, or not a story mode, but they call it like, oh, this is like if you want to focus on the story mode, or if you want to focus on the story, we have this mode for you, where like the combat's more easier. They give you certain items up front and everything of that nature. Um, so that's what they're doing. I think that's really cool. Um, Besides that, like I don't know what else. Low on my side. Can you say something now?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, but I don't know. I think the game looks really cool. The game already been announced to going gold, so in my opinion, man, just release the shit now. Like you're gonna sell buckets,
Mm-hmm.
like, but they're waiting to June still. So I mean that's cool because I still got Star Wars coming out. I still got to play fucking Advance Wars. I still got to play. I might get Zelda. We'll talk about that later and everything like that. But yeah. So
Are we in it right now? Are we in? Yeah, I
yeah,
feel
we're
like you were
recording.
going. You were going, man.
Yeah, we're recording.
I
So
wasn't like in the headspace that we were in the episode, but here we are.
yeah, no,
We're
I
in. All
was
right.
I was doing the little icebreaker thing, so that's
Yeah,
what I thought you were doing.
I got that. I got that like 30 seconds ago, and I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like
yeah. I was doing a
watching
little
the
ice.
gameplay. Just, I mean, it looks.
No, no,
It
no. I'm
looks.
glad you're just watching the
It
gameplay because
looks
like
badass, man. I'm fucking. I don't know. I don't
this
need to see anything.
this
Anything
game
else.
is what people think Final Fantasy 15 is. Like this
Yeah.
is what
Yeah.
This is what I imagine. This is
Right.
what I wanted Final Fantasy 15 to be. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, man. I mean, I know Yoshi P said no blacks allowed, but my black ass is gonna be playing that game. So, so,
Mhm. Yeah.
uh,
Well, goddamn. Yeah, it's looking good. Looking
yeah,
good.
man.
We'll see. I mean, look, Square's wanted to do this with Final Fantasy for fucking 15 years. So I'm glad they finally just fucking, they're just doing it, dude. Like, no more pussyfooting around. None of this half baked bullshit, halfway action, bullshit. Just fucking do it, man. Like, just make the damn action game already. So looks like they're actually doing that.
So yeah, do you think that was the ultimate goal of Final Fantasy to be an action game? They just
Not
never had the tech.
originally. No. Oh, you mean like back in the day? Like you like talking
Yeah,
like they
like
always
if
want.
if they had the technology they had today back in the
Yeah.
day, do you think Final Fantasy, the very first one on NES, let's just say it was some super advanced technology back then when we were kids, and they
No.
had the capability to make the game they had, the technology you had today, do
Yeah.
you think they would have made Final Fantasy the way it is now?
No. I don't think
You don't think
so.
so?
I
Okay.
think I think the idea came early on that they were like, we want this to be more action oriented because they made the ATB system right pretty
Yeah.
early in Final Fantasy's life cycle. I think it was like what 3, 4, no 5, right?
When
Was
did
that the
Chrono
first
Trigger come
ATB
out?
one? No, I
They
know. No, I'm talking to like Final Fantasy like proper though.
okay,
Was it
yeah.
5? Was that the first one that had the action
I think so.
ATB gauges?
Yeah, I think so.
Was it
5 or
6?
6. 5
Yeah.
or 6.
Okay. I think from that moment on, yeah, I think they wanted to make Final Fantasy like an action series. I know they had little deviations where there were like, it was like Final Fantasy 10, which is strictly turn based.
Mhm.
Where they kind of went back to that old, and I think 9 isn't 9 full turn based too, or does it have ATB?
I haven't. I gotta go back and play 9.
Okay, I never played 9, so I don't know for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, I know 10 is turn based, like full on turn based. But ever since 10, yeah, they've wanted to make the series action for sure, like no question. Um and they've hedged, every game. And I think it's time, man. Just do it. I mean, I guess 15 is pretty much an action game, even though I don't think it's very good. It is, I would say,
No,
pretty
it is a
strictly an
it is
action
an
game.
action game. Yeah, it's an
So
action game.
yeah. Um, but yeah, no. So yeah, I don't know. I think it morphed at some point. I would say earlier in the lifespan of the series, it morphed into a like because you got to think about the time frame, right? Final Fantasies 1 through 4, or even I mean going all the way to 6, really came out when the JRPG had a format, like a very specific format. They all looked the same.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Final Fantasy was like one of the progenitors of that format, um, for sure. And they just kind of continued with that. But I think there came a point where they all did start looking the same, and I think Square wanted to differentiate themselves, which is where they came up with the ATB system. Um, but yeah, and then I think at a certain point they wanted to forge their own path with the series, so and kind of make every game different. I think that was ultimately their goal. Was I think they wanted every game to be unique and stand on its own.
Yeah.
um there to be no like you couldn't necessarily take knowledge from a prior Final Fantasy to understand how to play the next one. They would just be, or you wouldn't need that even to understand the game. You just showed up, the game was the game, it was encapsulated. I think that's more what they've started to go for, whether that's action or turn based. I don't necessarily think they care. I think they probably think nowadays action's the way to go because of the popularity of it relative to turn based. But turn based has its place too. I could see a turn based Final Fantasy game happening again in the future. Like I really could see that if they got the right director in there. I
Mhm.
even think like Yoshi P could do it if he does the next Final Fantasy game. I could see him being like, no, fuck it, this one's gonna be turn based. It's like he's crazy enough to do something like that. Um, so we'll see. I mean, it's exciting. It's what, 2 months away, 2.5 months away, like June 26th, right?
Yeah.
So we're not far off. We are not far off. That's crazy. That shit's gonna sneak up on me. Oh boy. All right. Well, um, I guess let's just get into the show proper. I guess right, Montreal. I'm I was a little thrown off at first, but here we're here. We're here now. So let me get through the rigmarole first. Hey everybody, this is the Players Take, episode 216. I'm your host Justin DeSimone, joined as always by my co-host Montrell Rice. Uh, this is, for those of you who haven't listened before, our video game show where we talk about video games, video game news, and other topics pertaining to video games. We post at 6 a.m. Central Time on Fridays on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and your favorite podcast app of choice. And if you'd like to send us a question, you can do so on Twitter at The Players Take, or you can send us an email to theplayerstake01 at gmail.com. All right, Montreal, how are you doing this week, man? How's life treating you?
This week has been going by very slow. This has been a very slow
I
week.
agree. You didn't have Monday off, right? You got like a half day
Mm.
or something weird.
Yeah, I got a half day on Friday, but I had to
Friday,
work a
okay.
full day on Monday. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a really slow week for me. Really slow week for video games for me. Uh, Everything was just really slow. This whole month, even though it's already the 13th, I feel like this month has been going by super slow. And there's a plenty of reasons I want to get this month over with, or not over with. I'm looking forward towards the end of the month. So maybe that's why it's going so slow for me because like I have several things. Like one of my gun projects is getting, gonna be
Hmm.
finally be complete.
Yeah.
I'm moving into the next step of my life, as
Mm.
far as like my relationship and everything. And then we're gonna be, building a deck in the backyard and shit like that. So it's like I have a lot of stuff I want to do at the end of the month. And it's just taking fucking forever to get there. So yeah. Oh, and Star Wars comes out at the end of this month, so I'm anticipating that game a lot. Um, yeah, it's just a lot, just going on, and I don't know none of the games I'm having right now. Like I have a ton of backlog games that I really want to finish. Like I really want to finish Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Uh, I really want to finish Wulong. I really want to dive back into my catalog and play an older game, like maybe Kingdom Hearts 2, or I'm still debating on. Even though I got mad at Devil May Cry 5 last week, I'm still debating on going back to that and playing it. Um, it's just a lot because I really want to just dive back into like something I know and I'm familiar with that's gonna make me comfortable and everything like
Hmm.
that. So yeah, it's just been a really solid, slow month.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I get what you mean. I feel like the last couple months have been really slow. I like look at things in my email or like at work and I'm like, that only happened 3 weeks ago. That feels like it was like 4 months ago, you know?
Yeah.
It's like happened to me like 4 times in the last couple weeks where I noticed something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I feel you. Time's moving slow right now. But um but I don't know, things are good overall for the most part.
Yeah,
Just gaming
same. I
really,
can't complain. Yeah, I
Um
can't complain at all. So.
so fair enough. All right. Well, let's move into what we've been playing. Do you want to start us off this week?
Actually, yeah, I'll start off this week. So I haven't really played Wulong. I play a little bit more. They just released for Final Fantasy. They released the Mercenaries mode, which is pretty much like the go around, shoot, score points in a particular arena of Final Fantasy of Resident Evil or whatever.
Okay, you were
Uh,
confusing me. I was like, what the fuck?
yeah, so it was on the older Resident Evil games, or the older Resident Evil 4 games and
Hmm.
above. They always released the mercenary mode, or it always came with the mercenaries mode. And you have a timer, and then you're in a certain arena of one of the single player parts of the map or whatever, and yeah, enemies spawn in waves, and you beat them and you kill them, and you get more points, and you rack up points, and you rack up a certain amount of points before the time ends. And they have little nodes on the battlefield that will spawn for more time, for like 30 seconds here, a minute there. You do certain things and everything like that.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I've been playing that. I've been playing. I played League of Legends this week with Andy, and I had fun. Even though we like lost one game, it was still fun just to play. I am I'm burnt out of Apex Legends. I'm not going to go into a deep tirade about that, but I
Oh
am burnt
no.
out. Yeah.
Oh
Yesterday,
no.
I played like one game. I usually do my warm ups in the fire range, so I warm up in the fire range real quick before I
Mhm.
play. Do a couple wall bounces. Do a couple strife or strafing runs as far as like shooting and everything like that, and then I go into a LTM mode, like gun run, team deathmatch or whatever, warm up in there, and then I go into a ranked game or something like that. And I
Yeah.
got to the ranked game, and I didn't have the capacity. I played one game, died instantly, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this today. So I didn't even get mad. I just like I'm not doing this today. So I left, and then I put in the chat, hey, anybody want to play League of Legends? And then Andy was like, hey, I want to play. So
Yeah, I was tired
I
yesterday. We played what was it, 2 days ago, 3 days ago?
yeah
I forget. We played like two games, which that was fun. I did enjoy. I do want to play tonight, I think. So
yeah
if you're down, but
um yeah I'm everything that I knew I wasn't bitching about Apex Legends, and I've been bitching about it for a couple seasons. For the last 2 seasons, I've been going hard into it. Um, but I knew I wasn't. I didn't feel alone in my suspicions. I went to Twitter, and everyone said this is the worst seasons they ever had, as far as like the cheaters and everything like that. It just felt like last. It felt like the end of last season. You remember the end of last season? How it was just like
yeah.
terrible.
Oh yeah.
Uh, this is how it feels at the beginning of the
We're
split for
back.
this
We're
season.
back there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in my opinion, it's even worse because they actually were like, "Oh, we're going to take out time to do this." The DDoS attacks, the hackers, the cheaters. It's just
They didn't fix any
un
of that shit.
yeah, it's unbearable at
And
this
what are we,
point.
30 days away from a new season, and what are we just going back to normal now? Like they're just gonna have a new champ next season and all this other
Yep.
shit,
Yeah,
and
pretty
we're going
much.
back into that cycle, like because I'm gonna be honest, like playing the game again. I mean, I'm having fun. I'm having more fun with it than I was, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think they've fixed nearly
They
anything that
they
we were complaining about.
no, they
yeah,
didn't. A lot of people, a lot of the big streamers, a lot of the developers even said like, you know, it was a developer who was listening to a very popular streamer slash pros podcast, and he was like, "Yeah, listen to this podcast." He co-signed it and was like, "Yeah, listen to everything they're saying in this podcast." And in the podcast, he was like not trashing on the game, but he was just saying like there are a lot of things that need to be addressed. And he was like, cheaters are the worst I've ever seen this season. And one point that he made that was very interesting about Apex was like, it shouldn't be up to the players to keep the game alive. It should be up to the company. And I agree with that. We're
right.
begging Respawn, me and you beg Respawn on this podcast, even though they don't listen to it. And we go to tweets and we fill out the surveys and stuff like that. We're begging Respawn, hey, you have a gym here, make your game better. Here's how you can make it better. But instead, we get head of security DJing and saying, hey, fuck you guys, whatever, I'm DJing on the weekend. And it's like, I understand, like, it's a video game, but developers are the only ones I know. Game developers are the only ones I know who will get criticized for their job and then get defended for doing a bad job on their job. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
Uh, so, uh, yeah, I don't know. Besides that, though, I think the reason I do like this game so much is because I was discussing it with like Andy, and he agreed. Like he's like, "Yo, when this game is at its peak, he's like, when I was playing with you and Justin the other night, I forgot how fun this shit could be, and that
Hmm.
was a really good night."
Yeah.
And yeah, and I agree. Like when this game is at its peak, and that's why I complain about the game because when it's at its peak, it's one of the best free to play battle royales out there. Like you cannot get. I tried to play Fortnite by myself, and the game's really good, and it's just like I can't get the same feeling, the rush that I get from like
Yeah,
Apex
I know what
though.
you mean. It's one of the best multiplayer games I've ever played. Like
Yeah,
I stand by that. I will always say that about Apex. But dude, it's just the problem is we don't have those nights very often. Like we were harping on last week about that that night a couple weeks ago with your friend Mark. Dude, because it was that we like, dude, I don't remember the last time I had a night like that playing Apex where I like felt that like I was having that much fun,
Yeah.
because I was legitimately having a ton of fun with you guys, and yeah, we've had it a couple times otherwise in the last couple weeks, but um, I'm just like to be honest though, more often than not, I I leave the night frustrated. I don't want to waste my whole night playing Apex. Like I like it's like 11 o'clock and we've been playing for 2 or 3 hours, and
Yeah.
I'm like, we're getting nowhere, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm done. I don't, I can't. I'm not doing this whole all night,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna wake up in the morning and be mad and annoyed that I spent my whole night wasting my time fucking playing this game. And it
Yeah.
just they don't seem to care about that player experience being captured because when the game finds the right equilibrium, it's so fucking good. You're totally right. There's a rush, like a rush. You're like in a fucking zone, man. And it's just you're not necessarily winning every game. That's not totally what it's about. But you're in those matches. The fights are fun. You're trading with other teams. You're trying to be strategic. There's a lot of chaos happening, and it's just the game doesn't capture that often. I think
Yeah.
I think there's too much of the they're trying too hard to force it, with the way they've designed ranked and shit now, where they're trying
Yeah.
to force those moments to happen later in the game, and it's just not working for me, dude. I'm so sick of fucking teams just being pussies and hiding in buildings for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
because they don't have to move, and it's just like
No,
it's frustrating.
yeah, and I was just talking, and just the more I talked with Andy about it last night, the more I was just thinking like what did I expect? And I knew what I expected. And I think this just have to be the norm for me, particularly with Apex and Respawn going forward. Um, I look at what they did with their first two projects, Titanfall and Titanfall 2. And I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe they didn't have enough funding for those games, and that's why they let those games die and get in the degree that they're in right now. You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like those
yeah.
games, the same rush in that you're feeling that you having right now is the rush I got when I was playing Titanfall 1 and 2.
Hmm.
There was no other game, and that's why I couldn't go back to Call of Duty. Once I touched that game, I was like, there's no other game like Call of Duty Twitch shooter type game that can fill that void that Titanfall has added. You just can't get it back. I don't
Yeah,
care how many movement things that Call of Duty adds. You can't get the rush of being on a live battlefield with six other pilots, and then there are NPCs everywhere. And on top of that, you have robots dropping out the sky, and it's just total mayhem. But there's an organized mayhem to it, and you're just like doing wall jumps and grappling and everything like that. And you get to Apex, and then they just drop Apex, and you get that same rush, but in a battle royale mode with hero shooters and everything like that, and you're like, fucking wow. And I've come to the discernment that this is just how Respawn operates. They can make great products, but they don't know how to maintain those products. And I thought it was because Titanfall 1 and 2 didn't have the support. They weren't money makers. Apex is like almost damn near a staple for EA at this point. It's a money maker, and they're still not supporting the game the way it needs to be supported. So I just chalk it up now to a Respawn thing. I don't think they know how to maintain a game after it's been released. They release it and they're like, oh shit, this is the greatest thing ever. And then after that, it disseminates into chaos.
yeah,
So maybe they should stick to single player games. Because the story mode in Titanfall 2 is phenomenal. Uh and obviously we played Jedi Outcast, and or not Jedi Outcast, but
Fallen
Jedi
Order.
Fallen Order, and and then Fallen Order 2 is coming out. And we all know that both of those games are. I haven't played the second one yet, but it's shaping up to be a really good game. But the first one was really good as well. So we know Respawn has the talent to make really good gameplay, good story, and everything. And maybe that's just
Yeah.
the role they should take, you know. And this Apex thing, like it funds their projects, but that's what it is at this point. And I've come to terms with that. So I don't really I will complain when I'm playing the game, but like from here on out, like I think I'm just going to shut the fuck up about the game because
I
it
just
is what
don't,
it is.
dude. I just don't understand why they're so bad at it. Like, or they don't even seem to care. about the security of their game, where people are hacking the game like crazy. Because, dude, other games don't treat this issue like this. Like League cheating gets fucking shut down immediately. You know,
Yeah, even
um,
Valorant, and that's not
yeah,
even their big money maker. They shut down that shit down in
dude.
Valorant
Call of
quickly.
Duty, yeah, Call of Duty fucking shuts that shit has started shutting that shit down. There was a problem with it a few years ago, but they have like turned that shit around. Dude, I just saw for Dota 2 like a few weeks ago, they posted this whole fucking blog post on Steam calling out cheaters and saying we just banned like fucking 30,000 fucking cheaters. And the way we did it, like they explained how they did it. They basically uh they put data in the game because they knew what the cheats were. They put data in the game that only those cheats could access, and that's how they identified the cheaters. So once people were accessing that data, because normal players couldn't access it, they banned them all, and they were like, we are 99.9% positive these bans are all legit. So because of the method they chose to do, and it's like they're putting effort into making their game clean, these
Yeah,
other companies, and it's just like it's so frustrating that Respawn has such a great game on their hands and they just don't fucking give a shit. They like it just that shit the head of security did on Twitter was unbelievable, dude. Like it's wild. That you're gonna go out there and just taunt your fan base, when your game is in shambles, from a hacking perspective, and you're the guy who's responsible for dealing with that, it's a joke. It's just a fucking joke. I don't know.
yeah,
So it's
and
frustrating because the gameplay is king. You know.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, we should have expected that when Titanfall 2 got hacked, and then um when Apex Legends itself got hacked to save Titanfall. I remember you guys remember that shit when
Oh yeah,
you
I
logged
do
into
remember that.
Apex and it was saying save Titanfall, and they couldn't solve it for about a week, or maybe about 2 or 3 days.
It was
It was about two.
days. I remember though, dude. It was a holiday, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Wasn't it
it was like
like this time, like a year or two ago? It was around
I,
Easter, wasn't it?
I think so. I want to say it was either
Shit's
Easter or
hilarious.
around Thanksgiving or something like that. I remember it, and I was just like, "Are they gonna do anything about it?" Because it wasn't interrupting your games; it was just on the lobby screen and everything like that.
Well, no,
And
remember you couldn't queue up. It was interrupting games.
oh, it
Like you
was?
literally couldn't queue up. If you tried to queue up, the message would show up. That was it was a legitimate problem. Like it wasn't actually impacting the people's ability to play the game.
That's okay.
And it took them
Yeah,
a whole day to fix it. It was hilarious. It was super funny, man.
yeah. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with the game, and that's where I'm at with Respawn. I think they're a very talented company, um, but they have that talent comes with a price, and I think the price is they don't know how to maintain their games. And and this is it's just like a message to all like developers, and like I don't know if you're listening, like if you're a developer, like have a backbone. I'm sorry you had to deal with the public, uh, but we all have to deal with some form of like criticism in our everyday lives, and I don't know. I'm so tired of developers just taking up this like um this victim blaming or this victimhood shit that they're doing. Like, oh my god, oh they attacked me on Twitter. Oh, and it's like, bro, it's Twitter. Like, you can log off, just log off,
Mhm.
and you will never see that shit ever again. So I don't know. It's just really getting annoying, and it's actually affecting the product now of certain games. Yeah, that shit on Twitter that we saw, that was just to me, that was unspeakable. I was just like, wow. I didn't even say nothing. It was unprovoked. Like, no one was tweeting at this guy, and he just tweeted it. And everyone was like, okay.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
was one of the most unprovoked things I've ever seen. And I'm surprised he still has a job. Because if I had done that shit, I would have got fired from my job. You know? So I don't know. It's just a weird thing for the head of a like he's probably a director or something like that. Or the manager of a team. It's just something weird that you don't do. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it though.
Provoking your customers, yeah, or
Yeah.
antagonizing your customers, yeah, makes a lot of sense. But
Yeah.
all right, what else are you playing? Anything else?
Uh, that was pretty much it. I haven't touched Wulong yet. For some reason, this game is really good, but it's not itching the itch I wanted to itch. But I am gonna go back and finish it.
Hmm.
So yeah, but I haven't touched Hogwarts Legacy or anything like that. But I will eventually get back to these games. I think Wulong and Hogwarts Legacy I'm gonna save for um the downtime, which is like the August to like
Hmm.
September-ish time when they're like
Yep.
no game, July,
Yep.
August, you know. So yeah, that's it for me. What about you?
Sounds good. Yeah, mostly same Apex, League. I haven't played Genshin at all since we last recorded, so take that off. Yeah, League. We've played a couple games. That was fun. We had one the last game we played. We like fucking dominated. It was a crazy game. That one was fun though. And then just playing Atelier Riser 3 pretty heavily. I've gotten fairly I'm I did a lot of exploring this past week. I kind of went and did some side content, just did some exploring around the game world. Um Jumping into the alchemy system, the crafting system pretty heavily. And definitely figured some things out this past week, unlocked some new mechanics that makes crafting a little easier. I did unlock the prime one of the primary mechanics in the game though is these keys that you get. You can make keys in various ways, and they all have different effects. You can use them out when you're running around adventuring. You can use them in synthesis, which is the crafting system. You can use them in combat as well, to like buff your party. You can even equip them to your characters to get bonuses as well. So it's kind of a really interesting system. It seems like the whole game is centered around this concept, and I like it so far. I'm definitely enjoying that. The crafting I got really deep into. I like made like fucking really nice shit for all my characters this past week. So my party's pretty decked out right now. I'm feeling pretty good about it. So I did start doing the story the last couple days, and I'm kind of making my way through that. I actually don't think I'm very far in it. Funny enough, but nonetheless, I'm enjoying the game a lot. So it's just an interesting. It's just a really, like I said, a cozy game. It's really chill. The story is so like not there's just no urgency to it at all. They're just kind of wandering around like I mean they have goals, right? They're trying to achieve, but there's no rush to achieve them. They get sidetracked a lot, the party does, where they just
Mhm.
go do random shit. And it's funny. I enjoy it. I like it. I don't know. The game it's like they're not trying to tell this fucking epic story. It's just like these characters are just kind of living their lives, you know? And I
Yeah,
like that aspect of it. It's almost like a slice of life type thing. Um, but it's interesting though, running around the game world. It kind of reminds me of those old like first person RPGs on PC from like the 90s, like fucking like Lands of Lore or like the really old Elder Scrolls shit.
yeah,
It kind of reminds me of that, man, like in a Japanese RPG, because a lot of the environments are really static. There's not a lot of like they're not trying to immerse you into this like realistic world or anything like that. Like it's real just there's just characters standing around like they're like you go into a city and it's fucking huge. Like I got to a city the other day like on the second zone, and this city is massive. There's like tons of fucking buildings and shit. But you can't go in most of them, and there's a lot of NPCs wandering around, but they don't do a whole lot. But then there's like these random shops scattered about you can go buy random shit at, and it's not like there's not like a structure to the shops. Like they don't sell specific things. They'll just have random stuff. Like it kind of feels like those games where you'll just walk up to a merchant and they'll have some fucking like super fucking awesome thing in their inventory for whatever reason, and you just have to go find it. You need to spend the effort to go find it. It kind of feels like those old games. Like it reminds me of Morrowind, actually, not in like a an epic storytelling way, but in the running around the world kind of way where there's just shit scattered about all over the place, and it's a fairly static world though. Things don't really change very much in it, so I like it in that regard as well. I don't know, it's a fun game. I'm just making my way through it, so I'm not rushing it or anything. I'm trying to take my time with it. I'm just enjoying it and smelling the roses as I go. So it's a very fun game if you're like I said, if you're the kind of person who likes crafting in their RPGs, and you want a little bit deeper version of that. I think this game is a really good game to jump into. If you don't like that side of RPGs, stay away from this game as far as you can, because trust me, you cannot play this game without going into the crafting system. Like, the game is centered around it. You literally will not be able to progress at certain points. So,
Okay.
um, but
I will say I'm looking at the combat and man, this shit looks pretty fucking cool, yo.
yeah, I'll say it's so far fairly simplistic. They're layering mechanics on, like the keys is a new thing they got layered in. But the way the game works is kind of interesting because you can synthesize items, like usable items. So when you start the game out, this is kind of something that was throwing me off at first. Your characters don't have any healing spells. Like, you don't inherently have the ability to heal your party. You literally have to go make an item that can heal your party. That's the only way you can heal. It's either that or go rest at your like hideout or whatever. Um but the degree to which of how good you make that healing item kind of informs how well it heals, like, how like effective it is as a healing item. So the first one I made was really shitty. It only healed like, I don't know, 20 hit points on a character that has like 150, so it wasn't great. But then I made another one, later on, once my crafting got a little bit better, and then it now heals for like 80 hit points. So you can make those items better over time, and it's a really interesting, it's a weird system, because the main way your characters gain power is through the crafting system. It's not through running around and fighting monsters. Like, you gain levels and you get experience, but when your characters level up, they gain very minimal stats, like one or two in each statistical point. Whereas you can make a piece of gear, like for instance, my weapons. I made weapons for every character that all give like 30 attack,
Mhm.
whereas the base weapon gives like 5 to 10, so that's how you make your characters and your party a lot better, is by engaging in the crafting system in the game. So, but the combat itself is fairly engaging. It's kind of a hybrid, like almost like a hybrid ATB system where you have to wait for your turn to come up. And depending on what actions you take, your turn will take longer to come up, which is the same as like in Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger and stuff. Um, so you kind of have to be careful what you do, because when your turn comes up, if you have these points that you accumulate when you use abilities called CC. I think they're called core points, or I don't know, something like that. It's what you need to use items. And let's say you use all of your points and you use 4 items, your turn is going to take fucking forever to come up. Like, literally, you're going to be sitting there for 20 seconds waiting. Um, but it's a trade off though, because items can be really powerful. As I was saying with the healing, the same is true for damage items. You can make damage items that do fucking crazy good damage. Like, I'm talking like one shot enemies good. So the game is really weird in the way it's structured. It lets you experiment, and the power scaling is all over the place. And I kind of like it for it though, because it rewards you for exploring the crafting system. It's not a game that's got this linear curve of power. The game does not scale with you or anything like that. You could totally overpower enemies that are appropriately leveled for you if your gear and the items you've made are appropriately powered up, like through the crafting
Okay.
system. So it's a really interesting game that really rewards the player for interfacing with the crafting system. I think that's like, I mean, it's obviously the main core mechanic of the game, but it's cool that it informs the way the rest of the game plays based on what you do in there, and I really like that. I think that, like I said last week, this game knows what it is, and it does what it's trying to do very, very well. And I think it's a really fun game as a result. But there's a lot of little mechanics in there. You can swap party members in and out in the middle of combat, and they'll do like special moves. And then characters, you don't control the other two characters in your party. They're AI controlled, but they will yell out things in the middle of combat, like asking you to do something, like do physical damage to the enemy or do magical damage to the enemy. If you do that, you'll kind of like punt the enemy into the air, and they'll combo off of you and do like a special move.
Mm,
Um,
so
and
that's
I
I
just
did see
unlocked,
that.
Yeah, I just unlocked a mechanic that if you do that enough times in the middle of a combat, you'll actually unlock another special move that you can unleash that does like a fuck ton of damage. Like it's like a really big attack. So the game is I think the combat it makes a lot of sense when you're in it and you start doing stuff with it. It plays off the different mechanics play off each other really well. So yeah, it's a cool game. Um I I'm glad I bought it. Actually, I really needed it right now. I needed a kind of a break from the normal, run of games that I tend to play. So, I'm enjoying this one a lot. So, definitely recommend it. Okay, Montrell, we got a decent amount of news this week, so let's start getting through it.
All right.
Um, first things first. Suicide Squad Rocksteady announced and WB announced that it is launching on February 2nd, 2024 next year. That is the date after this delay. Because I don't think the delay was ever actually officially announced. So this is the announcement of it.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so this interesting. We got an official date. Jason Schreier on Twitter is very, very adamant that this delay is not going to be used to modify the microtransaction systems in the game heavily, or change the entire game. Which I don't know. I mean, he's been ingrained in the industry for a long time, and I do trust his judgment. But there's a
Yeah.
degree to which he's standing on this hill that I just think he's being unreasonable. Because I think it's fairly unlikely that they're going to change nothing about the microtransaction systems before the game launches next February. But
Yeah.
that's my
I
that's my opinion.
no, I agree. I think one of the things that people were complaining about when they saw the trailer, first of all, like people need to stop acting like we are dumb.
Yeah.
This was a direct feedback to the trailer that we saw. Like
Right. The
it
delay
was.
the delay happened like 2 or 3 weeks after. Like we started hearing
Yes.
about that after the state of play.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so or maybe, I was talking to one game developer and he said it could have been because the shareholders were getting on their ass as well about the game. The shareholders do watch this shit.
Hmm.
And they weren't happy with the way the game was looking. Um, so that could have been a thing. One thing I never saw was the game was unpolished. Never
Yep.
saw that.
Yep.
No one never said the game was unpolished. I saw people, even myself, I was like, wow, this gameplay looks pretty solid. And everything like that. I mean, yeah, like the traversals was like wacky and Fortnite-ish, but it's like whatever the fuck. It still looked very polished and solid.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, it was the microtransactions. It was the live service thing. After that news came out, that game came out right after like 18 to 20 games got canceled. Live service games got canceled.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, the gamers are spoken where there was, wallets that were spoken where we're tired of live service games. We only have a set amount for that within the economy or within the environment rather.
Hmm.
So that was one thing. Two, I agree with you wholeheartedly. 95%. This is where I said 95%. 95% of what Jason Schreier writes, I 100% believe. Now, the other 5% is the shit that he tweets. And let's talk about Twitter, Jason Schreier, compared to journalist Jason Schreier. Um, so I have another account that I have that I don't get on anymore. Um, but I had another account because I wanted a separate account for like all my guns and game shit compared to my other Twitter. My main Twitter's like completely messed up with others because I had that Twitter for about almost 20, or not 20 years, but like almost 10 years, 10 to 14 years, I think is it. So I had that Twitter for a long time. Um, but this game or this account, it was fresh and I was like, okay, I'm gonna follow like all my gaming journalists and also my gun enthusiasts
Hmm.
people, and that's it. I'm not following, and if they follow me back, they follow me back. If they don't, they don't. So whatever. And it was like a peaceful Twitter until one day a journalist tweeted out about Bayonetta 3, and he recommended that article, so I trusted him and I read the review, and that was the review about Bayonetta 3 being, or Bayonetta being by, and how this shattered everyone's head canon for Bayonetta and everything like that. When it turns out And then he attacked. He literally like berated me and was like downplaying what I was saying and like being very sarcastic and just like,
Mhm.
you know, I was trying to talk to him in a respectful manner, but he wasn't giving me that respect back.
Yeah.
Um, he never played the game. The journalist that he retweeted, she played the game, but this was before the spoilers were released. Or yeah, this before the game was released, like a day or two before the game got released. And it turns out I was right about everything I said about the game, and she was completely wrong about everything she said. The Bayonetta that she said that, you know, people had this headcanon for her and her best friend being like lovers. We don't know if that ever came to fruition because she was upset that Bayonetta had a child with one of the guys that was like chasing the Bayonetta throughout Bayonetta 1 and I think 2, I think. Where it turns out that Bayonetta that had the kid was a different universe Bayonetta. That wasn't our main Bayonetta. So that whole article she wrote and the reason she was mad at Bayonetta 3 was null and void because that wasn't our main Bayonetta. So that our main Bayonetta could still be that person that you love or whatever, but we would never know because they didn't expand the story with that Bayonetta. The Bayonetta that you play in Bayonetta 3 is another Bayonetta. So it's a multiverse Bayonetta thing going on. Because the game even tells you that you're going to different multiverses, taking control of different Bayonettas. Um, so after all that, I just decided like, hey, I'm gonna trust his articles, but as far as like his tweeting and his retweeting and the stuff that he kind of co-signs on, I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt from now on. So I say that to say that's why I'm kind of like I don't know about this because he's tweeting a lot, but he's not writing articles a lot. If that
Yeah,
makes any sense.
he's not reporting on this situation,
Yeah.
no.
So because when you report it, you have to put it down on paper. You have to stand on that word with sources and everything of that nature.
Right.
He's just tweeting it, so it's his opinion, and that's where I kind of differentiate, you know, his viewpoints and everything of that nature, or this
Mhm.
word he stands on. Because to
Right.
me, honestly, he's just talking out of his ass. Like and it's kind of hard to say that to him without him being offended. You know, like, bro, you're just talking out of your ass. So, um, yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel about the whole situation, and I think Suicide Squad is being delayed because of the microtransactions and primarily the always online thing that they said. Um, I think a lot more people would be susceptible to the game if it wasn't always online. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just how I feel. Like if it was like a couch co-op game, I think a lot of people would be like okay with that. Like that's fucking cool. But I don't think it is.
Mhm.
And the online component is a huge factor uh in the reason why I think the backlash became what it was. But they're saying that's not what it is. And then he's saying that's not what it is. So I don't know.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't it's kind of weird that he's so vehement about it because I think I think he definitely has some sources obviously he must be talking to, but I mean, it's really hard to believe that the delay happened so quickly after that state of play, after such a negative reaction, to think that they're going to change nothing about the core gameplay mechanics or the microtransaction systems, the live service elements. Like you know, I can understand like you're not changing like the underlying systems of these things necessarily, but the way they function in some way, you know, like the strategy you're trying to achieve with the live service elements. Like that kind of stuff probably can change within this time period. I mean, it's a year. Like they're basically getting a whole nother year. But I expect the next time we see this game, there will be some differences, and they will call them out. Because I did see some people tweeting, somebody that was like a game developer saying like, this delay, like they're probably going to be crunching their fucking asses off for the next year, until this game comes out because they probably are going to try to squeeze a year and a half of fucking development into a year, you know, and try to do some significant stuff. Like, why would they give them so much time, you know? Because this game's been in development forever. I mean, it's by the time this comes out, it's gonna have been almost 9 years since Arkham Knight came out, you know,
Hmm.
um, and that's fucking insane. That like in my opinion, like I don't think they should have even done this delay. I think they should have just fucking accepted whatever fate they were gonna have when this game launched and just fucking launch it. It's gonna sell like crazy. Even with the bad reception, I still think this game was gonna sell like crazy. Honestly, and I find it weird that they're treating it like something. I think they must really sincerely not want this to fail in an Avengers style way, like in an Avengers kind of way. I think they want this to have longevity, which is why they're doing this, because I otherwise can't understand it. I would just release it, accept the money you're going to get, and move on.
Yeah.
That's my viewpoint on it. But um, I don't know. I'm not invested in this game. I don't personally care, so that's why I feel that way. Hopefully, people get a better game out of it. Hopefully, we get a better game out of it. I'm sure we probably will, but um, we'll find out. I guess it's just interesting. I don't know. It's an interesting situation, certainly. So, all right, moving on. Our next story is about Redfall. So, Arcane and Bethesda have said that this game will be releasing with no 60 FPS mode at launch. It will be coming post launch. So it'll be capped at 30 frames when the game comes out um, in May, on May 12th. And in a day and age where we are now, in this PS5, Xbox Series X, generation, this just feels like I don't know why games keep doing this. This is not really an acceptable thing at this point. People don't want this. Um, I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Redfall is very interesting. I am not interested in this game at all. But then sometimes I see the gameplay, I'm like, maybe I want to play it. But then I remember it's not a single player game per se. It's meant to be played with other people, and I don't want to play it. So uh this kind of solidified that I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till it's like on Game Pass or like $2. I'm gonna buy it. And that's so bad to say, because this studio is very talented. Arcane Studios is very talented, but I'm starting to like just realize that maybe their games aren't just for me. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think this is like really bad because Xbox itself hoist itself on the fact that it's the most powerful console, even more
Right.
powerful than a PS5. On paper, it is. Um, and 120 frames and all this other bullshit. And y I don't know if it's Arcane who can't get it to perform at 60 frames, or if there's something going on with the Xbox, the hardware they're working with. So is I think this is very interesting. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of would have kept this in the bag for a while,
Well, the
but I
game's
guess
coming
you
out
got
in a month. I mean, they can't
yeah,
wait that much longer.
they can't, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna speculate here because I've been saying this for a while. I think Starfield might have the same problem.
Oh yeah, 100%,
Like I don't
100%.
think that's games launching with a 60 FPS mode. Like I don't know. Cuz remember the last time we saw it last year where they showed like a gameplay? It was not smooth. Like it was not there yet. So, um I think that explains the delay of that game a lot more than what we saw with Suicide Squad because yeah, I don't have faith that Starfield's coming out with like silky smooth 60 frames 4K mode. I would be surprised if that was the case.
You know what's funny? I have a weird. I'm gonna push back and say I think that it might. I I haven't really seen Bethesda delay a game. Yeah, to my knowledge, I haven't really seen it. They just release the shit and they fix it after it gets released.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but they're
so
treating
for
Starfield differently. Because you're right, Fallout 4 was just announced and released.
yeah, yeah,
Skyrim, I believe, was the same thing. It was announced and released.
yeah, and um, even like Fallout New Vegas were announced, released, and then yeah, the bugs and everything, but then they fixed it. So it's like, yeah, that's how they release their games, and I know they're treating Starfield like the golden child and everything like that.
Mhm.
But I think they're first of all they're under new leadership, uh, and then second of all, like this is their golden child, so it has to be polished. Um, and I think like I'm not listening to these words, the best and most polished version of the game. I just think it needs to be. I think they know they have to have that 60 frames per second and that 1080p 60 frames. Like there isn't an option for that. Or you just come out and tell people like, hey, either you get the procedurally generated, worlds or whatever they got going on with that system, or you get 60 frames. And we chose to let you explore the world, but at 30 frames per second.
Mhm.
So I don't know. That's my take on it though. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand and say it's gonna come out. If I had to pick a side of the fence, I think it's gonna come out with 60 frames. Or at least 40 to 55 frames.
Yeah. Yeah, I just I think at best they're gonna hedge. It'll either be 60 frames like 1080 or it'll be like 45 frames steady or something or 50 frames. And then maybe they'll work their way up to 60 frames after launch, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, so yeah, this is another Bethesda game. I mean, this is Arcane. This isn't Bethesda proper, but I feel like Bethesda in general has issues with stability with their games a lot of the time. Um, so it's been a pretty common occurrence um, with that publisher. So not too surprised here. I don't know. Like I feel like Redfall. I feel like this game might be dead on arrival, which is
There's
weird to say. You remember the hype around that first trailer, the one with no gameplay?
Yeah, I do. And me and you were the only ones like, what is this game?
Hold your brakes. Yeah, hold on, everybody. What
Yeah.
are you all so excited about? I don't hear anybody talking about this game. Like, I see very little chatter about it.
Well, the
So
the co- the hard part is, and I think this will be talked about if this game comes out. What is the game?
yeah,
People don't know what the game is.
that
We don't
is
know if it's a
true.
looter
Yeah,
shooter. We don't
yeah,
know if it's a, a story driven game. We just don't know what the if it's like a Far Cry type game. Like we don't know. I can even the trailer, even the gameplay trailer they showed explain the game. I still don't know what is the game. Is there because it has loot in the game, but then they're not really marketing it as a looter shooter. So I don't know,
right. Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. They're trying to. I think they're trying to avoid a designation specifically. But it's hurting the game in my opinion because I'm with you. I don't know what it is. Like you run around and you shoot vampires and it's got some co-op. Okay, cool. What's the goal? What are you doing? Like what is your purpose? Like what's the player trying to achieve in this game? That like none of that
Mhm.
really is clear. So but yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm not planning on playing it either, so we'll follow it surely. But um, I don't know. I mean, this might be a good one to guess the meta score on. I mean, what do you think? What do you think on this? Like, we're being pretty negative.
I I think it's still going to come out with the solid 75.
Yeah, I was thinking like 7.2 or something like that. Fuck it, I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, I think it's still going to come out with
Uh,
a solid 75.
yeah. Okay. So you're a 7.5, and
Hmm.
I'll go 7.2. All right. Yeah, we'll track that after it comes out. We'll see. um. All right. Well. Yeah. Moving on. Our next story is about Sony. So there's a rumor going around that Sony has cut PSVR production by 20%. And this is on the heels of reporting that the new VR headset is off to a very, very slow start. Has only sold around 270,000 units. This was reported at the end of March 31st, in its first few weeks. So, um, yeah, for so context wise, the first PSVR in its life cycle sold, I believe, like 5 or 6 million total.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously it came out in 2016, I think. So that's 6 years on the market. before its successor came out. And obviously, the last couple years probably weren't like super crazy in terms of sales. But yeah, this is a pretty slow start for a device that seems pretty high tech actually. And Sony was pushing fairly hard, but I'm already getting the vibe on this one that I think this might be a Vita situation. I think
Hmm.
they might be kicking this one to the curb, man.
Yeah. I I mean, we already told you that we talked about the issues already. It just has too many proprietary issues. The controller breaks. You got to replace both controllers, and I think they're like upwards to $100 or something like that, or $120, some crazy price for a
Mhm.
controller for the
Yeah,
controllers.
yeah,
Uh, and another thing is, why buy this device that's plugged into a PS5 with a cord when I can buy a wireless like Oculus Rift or something like that,
yeah.
and play Steam games and all that shit like that on the Oculus Rift and everything like that. And go to VR chat because that's what mainly people use the VR headset for is VR chat, um, and other VR games.
Well, it's
I
interesting
just
though.
think,
Remember the Meta Quest 2. So that's what the Oculus Rift turned into, the Meta Quest 2.
yeah,
Uh they had a price increase, remember last year. Um
yeah,
but it's still less than the PSVR 2. The
yeah,
PSVR 2 costs $550, so
and that's what I'm saying. And you're not even getting a wireless product out of that.
right. Yeah.
So what's the point of me
But
buying
you
that
also
when I
need a
can
PS5.
exactly you
Whereas the
need a
Meta Quest 2, you
PS5.
don't need anything, actually. I'm pretty sure it runs on its own. You don't even need a computer for it.
Yeah. Um so that's another thing too. Like Sony PS5 just started getting out in the wild. People are like just starting like the common person is just starting to be able to buy the game. When I say common person, I mean like people not hardcore into video games. They're just starting to get their PS5s now. Um I think they should have waited. And I understand they probably couldn't wait because of like, bottom line and quarterly, prediction and stuff like that, shareholders. Um, but I think they should have waited like one more year. They had,
Yeah.
yeah, because you need PS5s on the shelves, or you need PS5s in the living room, and you need people to experience these PS5s, and then say, "Hey, I want to add on to this PS5." And you didn't give people enough time to do that. And on top of that, like we already know, the economy is like not the best right now. Um, so a lot of people are just nervous right now to take these big commitments. And you said 599
Yeah.
for
No, 549.
549 is a big commitment for an add-on. It's not even a product; it's an add-on. So, um, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and there just hasn't been any major support from Sony since it came out so far either. Like they kind of needed games to be coming out consistently rather than their one big burst when it came out, you know. Um I don't know. It's weird cuz dude, I like in theory I am interested in this product. I would actually like to get this thing and play around with it, but I'm not doing that for fucking $550, you know. If it was 300, I would think about it, you know, but we're not even close to that. So part of this report, though, is speculation that they're going to need to reduce the price to have any chance of this thing like getting market share because yeah, they're potentially in disaster territory with this thing. Which is unfortunate because again, like I said, it looks like really good technology. This thing is a huge step forward from the original PSVR.
Yeah,
Obviously, I know it's not wireless, but it has one wire, and that wire is long. It's like a 15-foot wire. Like they made it so that you don't need to fucking specifically be close to the TV or set up an entire room for it. Like it's built to be utilized a little bit more casually. Um, so that I don't know. It's just an unfortunate thing. This is one of those things. Like I'll probably pick one of these up in a few years when it's down to 300 or less. Um, you know, but right now it's too much, dude. It's too much for what? Like, what am I gonna play on it? Like, I'm gonna go play like Gran Turismo in VR. Like that sounds cool, but you know, that's like a niche thing that's not appealing to everybody. And that Horizon, no offense to that Horizon game, but that Horizon game does not look good. in my opinion. So, um, yeah,
You should. That's what I mean. You should have to say no offense. Like it's not offensive. It's a critique of the game. Like it doesn't look
yeah.
good to you. You know.
It
But
it
anyway, yeah. No, I
I'm
understand.
trying not to be a dick. It just but dude, it's like an on rails climbing game where you like, you fight like Horizon fucking dinosaur machines and Aloy's in it for 2 seconds to like hook you in, and it's like um but cuz I've heard criticism of that game does not work specifically because you're not playing as Aloy. Like and I've had this is the biggest thing about Horizon that makes me laugh with Sony going all in on it is that I think they're going to find that people are not going to be interested in it when Aloy is not involved in the game they're making,
Yeah.
because I criticized Horizon for this with both games. You can go back and listen to me talk about Horizon 2 last year. Is that Aloy's existence as a character, the way she is and the things she knows, ruins everyone else around her because she is like an enlightened figure compared to everyone around her. The rest of the people around her are fucking cavemen, in comparison to her. And when you're playing as one of those cavemen, it's not going to be an interesting experience, when you know what Aloy knows, because we've experienced those games, so we know what Aloy knows about the world. So when you're playing it from the perspective of somebody who's just trying to survive or do something like, it's just not an interesting thing. It's not going to be interesting inherently. So it's an issue that franchise is going to have, sincerely, and
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to solve that. Because I frankly don't think they can without ruining the franchise. You know, so
Well,
we'll see.
that's the problem with trying to expand franchises like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just write the franchise for what it is and not what you want it to, or not what you think it should be. You know,
yeah.
they written it in such a way to where, like, yeah, like you said, the rest of the world isn't really that interesting because a lot of these people aren't as acknowledgeable as you, the player, or Aloy. So I don't know, but
Yeah, and
yeah,
Ayla is like self-aware of that fact. So many of her interactions are just exasperated because she's like, "You're an idiot. I don't like what you care about is irrelevant." It's like it's not
yeah,
important at all. She doesn't say that overtly most of the time, but you can feel it in the way her dialogue is written.
yeah,
And like the only way out for this for me is because they're going to have to make some kind of giant event happen in the third game where the world, like the people of the planet Earth that exist within the world of Horizon, get some kind of crash course on the things that Aloy knows, the reality of history that happened within that world, because and the nature of the machines and all that. Because I think if they don't do that, like it's going to be really difficult to make side games that are interesting, inherently. So we'll see. All right, moving on. There's a rumor out there from one of the writers at VGC Video Games Chronicle, Andy Roberts Robinson. Sorry, that there is a Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater remake that is coming in 2024. So Konami's been weirdly like mildly active the last few years. Um,
hmm,
they've been doing little things here and there.
yep,
And obviously they own the Metal Gear IP, so the idea that they would let that sit forever seems it seemed impossible, and a remake seems like the safest way to reinsert that franchise into gaming culture. But they're doing Metal Gear Solid 3 first. How does that make you feel?
um. If it is true, I'll start with that before I even go on my
Yeah.
little negative stuff. If it is true, yes, I think Metal Gear Solid 3 will be a solid remake. It will probably be the easiest one to remake, in the vein of like Metal Gear Solid 5. Some of the mechanics they wanted to do was introduced in Metal Gear Solid 3. That I saw the vision in Metal Gear Solid 5, what they wanted to do in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Hmm.
So that would make sense. The game would be a lot better with those mechanics, in my opinion. It's probably gonna be like a twin stakes kind of deal. If y'all ever play that GameCube remake of Metal Gear Solid One,
Hmm.
yeah, Metal Gear Solid One. Um, but in my opinion, if they want to do a full blown remake, they should have done one of the Super NES games, um, Metal Gear 2,
Yeah.
which was Snake's first missions, his very first missions, that they constantly reference in Metal Gear Solid. Um, and that those worlds seem a lot more interesting than the world, Metal Gear Solid world. Metal Gear Solid world is pretty interesting too, but Metal Gear One, like the storyline and everything like that is like super interesting. Um, and it would have been a very cool thing to see them remake those games like from the ground up, from the Super NES to PS5 or whatever. Um, but yeah, second thing is I take this shit with the super of grain of salt because every week, y'all, because I follow Metal Gear on my little timelines. I got a little ticker for it or whatever on Twitter, and every week there's some rumor about Metal Gear being remastered or Metal Gear being remade and stuff like that. So I'm taking this with the grain of salt. It's like the
Yeah.
tiniest grain of salt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to their credit, though, they are. I heard about the Castlevania thing. They did confirm. We heard for years they're doing a Silent Hill remake, and now they are.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, it could be true. Uh, another joke could be that this is just a remake for the pachinko machine. So there, it's all behind a pachinko
God.
machine. Uh,
Yeah, VJC's pretty
yeah, they're
legit.
pretty reliable.
They're
Yeah, they're
pretty
pretty.
reliable most of the time.
Yeah,
Like they've come up pretty quickly since we've been doing this podcast, and yeah, they've proven themselves to be a pretty legit source for these rumors. But which is why I have it on the show. I usually don't put rumors unless it's from somebody I deem to be a reliable source. Generally, so it's yeah. Let's just assume this is true. I think your options with starting out with remakes are Metal Gear Solid 3 or 1. Really, those are your options, right? You start at the beginning of the solid timeline with 3, or you do the first game, that came out.
yeah.
They're choosing to go chronologically, which is like you said. Like I know you want that idea of the NES games getting remade, but
Mhm.
dude, that's so dicey without Kojima involved, because he probably has a very specific vision of what that would look like, and I don't think Konami would be able to get anywhere near that vision without him
So
involved.
what's interesting is there was this little nugget, and it was brief. I think they are in talks with Kojima. He tweeted something out the other day about Metal Gear, and
Yeah.
he normally he will retweet stuff from Metal Gear, like when fans mention it or whatever.
Hmm.
I'm also glad to see like he's not like one of those snobs like, oh, I'm past Metal Gear now. Like he's actually genuinely proud of that shit, that IP. Um,
Yeah.
but he did tweet something out about Metal Gear, which was interesting. Um, and it was just like a little blurb or whatever. But I was just like, Metal Gear remake confirmed. Uh, and nothing came from it or whatever. He started tweeting other shit or whatever. But he would do shit like that. That's what Kojima does. He put nuggets in everything. Not everything is a nugget, but like certain things are nuggets.
Yeah.
So I actually do think like the relationship between him and Konami is actually coming back. And he can probably like, bring his team on as a third party to work on this alongside the Konami team, or just be a third party entity. And they make the game and then Konami, publishes it or whatever. Um, so I can see a world where he does come back and do that. But yeah, I forgot about the whole chronological order thing where Metal Gear Solid 3 being the first one out of the whole entire series.
Yeah.
Chronologically speaking, that does make sense. That makes a lot of sense. You go to Metal Gear Solid 3, then you go to Peace Walker, then you go to 5, then you go to Metal Gear 1, 2, then Metal Gear Solid uh
Then Metal Gear
1,
Solid 2, and then
Metal Gear Solid
4.
2, then Metal Gear Solid 4, and then if you want to count Revengeance, then you count Revengeance. But
Oh,
yeah.
and then Acid somewhere in there too.
I can't remember if Ass is considered canon or not.
It
One
is.
of those one of
I
those
think it
PSP
is.
games are considered canon. Okay, so Ass is considered canon. Okay,
Yeah, Peace Walker is too,
yeah,
but
Peace Walker is. There's another PSP game that's not considered canon. I can't remember which one it was
maybe
though.
it is Acid. I don't know if Acid was that one. I don't think was made by Kojima. He might have
Okay,
had some piece with it, but yeah, Peace Walker was definitely made by Kojima.
Yeah, that one's
Um,
definitely canon,
yeah,
for sure. But yeah, yeah, I would, because I would love for the newer generation to experience like Metal Gear. Like Metal Gear is probably the reason why I'm a conspiracy theorist to this
well,
day.
it's such a dude. It's such a fun franchise, man. Like it's so serious but goofy at the same time, you know.
Yes.
And it's like video games version of James Bond, and it even has references to that too in it. It's like
Yeah.
there's just a lot of self awareness with the franchise, and I think unfortunately most of the Metal Gear Solid games do not hold up. You know, like the
Yeah.
modern
Like
control
gameplay
schemes,
wise.
yeah, gameplay
Yeah.
wise, like they just don't really hold up. And it's unfortunate because I would argue that 4 and 5 are probably the only ones I'd say, maybe Peace Walker, but that was on a handheld, so like how well
Hmm.
does that truly play? um and yeah, so it's 2 and 3 definitely don't hold up. Like
No, they definitely don't.
their control schemes are awful, dude. Like because you know you could not move when you were in first person mode, like shooting things. It was really antiquated stuff. So I think it would be cool for these games to get remade for modern audience to be able to experience them. And it's it's a shame that, like, I hope Kojima does become involved because he's just so important. I mean, he is the franchise, you know. Like
Yeah.
it's I don't really want to see Metal Gear Solid games without him involved, you know. Remakes I could maybe stomach, but anything beyond that, I mean, we saw what they did with like Metal Gear Survive, dude. That was a fucking nightmare. Um, so yeah, I don't I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, that was a, I don't know what they were thinking with that shit. But that was during that weird time then everyone wanted to make like a survival type game as well, and I don't know. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we'll see. Like you said, these rumors have been happening often for Metal Gear. I mean, there's been shit with this for like years. Like
Yeah.
we've had a couple stories like this on the show, so um, we'll see if it actually comes true. All right, let's move on to our next story. EA this past week officially unveiled EA Sports FC. FIFA is no more, and this is going to be the first year without that FIFA branding on their main soccer game. They announced this officially, and they also revealed the logo, which is an upside down triangular shape. Um, it doesn't look terrible; it looks pretty good.
No, it looks pretty good.
Um, but yeah, so this is happening. I mean, they did say, you know, licensing. They are going to have access to the major teams in most of the important leagues, like Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, Series A, Premier League, things like that. Or sorry, I already said Premier League, Champions
Yeah.
League,
Yeah.
things like that. So they'll have access to players and teams and whatnot, which is probably the most important aspect. They just won't have the FIFA branding, you know, which is obviously the overall arcing organization for soccer in globally. But um, yeah, so I mean, I don't know. What do you think of this? Do you think there's any? Do you think there will be a downward trend in sales with this change?
Yes, only for the first year. Once people realize it's still same old FIFA, they're gonna come
Yeah.
right back to it.
Do you even think it's going to take a year though? Do you think, like, I could see it initially at launch being less than you would expect, but over the course of the year, sales
You know
being a
what?
little bit higher than you would normally see for FIFA?
Um, I think they might even out. I just see the next year, the next FIFA or the next FIFA, the next EA football or whatever it's being called, the next FC being released. I do see that one doing a lot better. Just because like people are still going to be tied to that FIFA sound,
Yeah,
the FIFA thing.
yeah,
Um, they have to get used to calling it like something else and everything. It's like a whole mental gymnastic thing that people got to get over. Um, yeah, that's like if you took Madden and named it, EA Sports American Football. They lost the
yeah.
Madden license and stuff like that. People will, but like, oh, we still have all the licenses to the, or they just called it EA NFL, 2025, and they
Yep.
took the Madden away. It'll be the same old Madden, but it's not Madden anymore. It's called, NFL. or
Mhm.
whatever. I think people will be receptive to buy it, especially like the casuals. Um, but then once they realize like, oh, this is just Madden, then the next year they will buy it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I just think
Yeah.
the word of mouth is going to take a little bit longer to spread out than usual. I don't know because these things are really iffy when you change names on certain things and everything like that. So yeah.
Well, they did say that they're planning on a huge marketing campaign for this new game where they will be showing the new branding over 100 matches of real world soccer um, in some of the profile leagues in Europe. So they're planning to get the name out there, I think. So they're going to try hard to make sure there is no dip with
Okay.
the change in the name, but it's gonna be hard for them not to see a dip. I mean, going from FIFA, which is one of the most recognizable things related to soccer in the world, to EA Sports FC. I mean, it's it's a pretty big difference. So,
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
but I think they'll be fine overall. I mean, once people realize, like you said, once people realize what the game has changed. That um, and the fact that I don't think FIFA will have a game ready with the name FIFA by the time this comes out, then they'll be fine. But that'd be the real kicker though. If FIFA could manage to release a halfway decent game by the time this came out, that would be painful for EA probably. Um, but that's probably not going to happen. So yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it does. We will certainly monitor it. It'll be something interesting to see on MPD when this game comes out later in the year. So, all right, let's move on to our final piece of news. A new trailer dropped for Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. This is the third trailer and might be the last one, but it doesn't say final, so there could be another one. Um, What did you think of this, Montrell? You seem pretty interested in it actually.
Yeah. It looks like it has a lot more shit to do. A lot more enemies to fight. A lot more ways to fight the enemy. Um. Yeah. I don't know. It just looks, and it looks like they were showing more like dungeony type shrines. I mean, we don't know if they have shrines or anything of that nature, which is really weird. I think they should have like, really specified that.
Yeah.
Um, I actually like the storyline and everything that they showed in the trailer and everything like that. I like Ganondorf's design. I like all the designs. Like I think Breath of the Wild designs got some of the best designs in Zelda. Um,
Yeah.
I just didn't like the game. But the design and everything looks really cool.
Yeah.
The world looks really cool. It gives me heavy like Xenoblade 2, Xenoblade 3 vibes from the world.
Mhm.
Uh, that's all I can think about is Monolith Soft and how they're not going to get any recognition for this shit. It's so fucking annoying. Um,
Yeah.
while I was watching the game. The game looks beautiful. I don't know how all that shit's gonna run on the Switch. Like for real, for real. It looks really good though. I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm not gonna get it first day. I'm gonna let it like sit for a minute, watch some gameplay of it, see if I like it. Um, I'm not gonna listen to any reviews because everybody's just gonna be dick sucking it and saying it's a 10. Uh,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna wait for gameplay reviews and then make my own decision, and then probably buy it like later on in the year or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 I think it's one of those things. Like neither of us really like Breath of the Wild that much. I think I liked it more than you actually. Weirdly enough. But yeah, it's just I don't know. They're not. They haven't shown enough for me to make any kind of prejudgment on it. To be totally honest. So it does look like there was like a 13-minute gameplay video a couple weeks ago that I
Hmm.
haven't fully perused through, but they do have some new abilities that they show off, um, which is cool. I think that's a key component of this. Is that was a big reason I did not like Breath of the Wild that much. Is that I felt like the game was too simple. There just wasn't enough. aspects to Link's gameplay in terms of puzzle solving and some of the tools he had at his disposal. And it seems like they're adding more things, you know, to um change that. So, which I think is a good thing. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I have a feeling we're not gonna get our dungeons that we really want in this
Yeah.
game. Probably not, but um, if they're better, if what we do get is a better version of the Divine Beast, though, like something a lot better than the Divine Beasts, more closer to a dungeon, then I'm probably going to be more okay with this game than I was with Breath of the Wild. It just makes me wonder though, like I don't know, like dude, I've tried to play Breath of the Wild like twice now, pretty heavily. I'm like, do I want to jump back into this one more time and like try to beat this game? And I'm like, I don't know,
I'm
man.
the same way. I'm thinking about it, but it's just like to me,
It's a
like I
lot of
know,
time. It's a lot of time.
yeah. To me, I think me and you just like we don't like it for different reasons. I just think
Yeah,
the game's overall boring. Like I
yeah,
did not have fun in the world. Um, yeah, it's just a boring game to me. Like everything is right about the game, but it's just boring as fuck. And
yeah.
this the Breath of the Wild 2, the reason why I'm like very Tears of the Kingdom, I guess I should call it now. The reason why I'm very I'm interested in it is because they look like they're gonna have a lot more shit going on in the world. It doesn't look
Hmm.
as boring
Yeah,
for what they showed. It
right.
looks like there are gonna be a lot more things on the screen, uh, and everything of that nature.
Yeah,
So even if I don't have my shrines or my dungeons rather, like there'll be enough on screen for me to just like fuck around and do stuff with. And if you want to have like if you want to if they somehow incorporate the dungeon within the world without actually going into a dungeon,
yeah.
that would be cool. And I know people are like, "Oh, the divine beasts are right there," and it's like, I guess those are dungeons.
Well, I just think the styling of them is really boring, dude. Like the way they look aesthetically and the fact that they all look the same ruins the whole thing to me. Like
Yeah,
because old dungeons all had their own aesthetic. That was part of the fun and the appeal of older Zelda games is walking into a dungeon. All right, what's this one? You know, like Ocarina of Time specifically is the ultimate game for this, where every dungeon is really fucking unique in that game. You know,
yeah,
um because as a kid the dungeons aren't really dungeons, they're locations but they're considered dungeons, the game considers them dungeons. But you go into the Deku tree, you go into the fucking giant Zora whale thing, I forget what it's called, and then you go into Death Mountain to the fucking whatchamacallit's lair, Dodongo's lair,
hmm
and that is a really important component to that game because the when you're an adult, the dungeons are actually dungeons. They're called like the Fire Temple, the Shadow Temple, the Water Temple. They're like real dungeons in the traditional sense, but they don't have like we're not. I think what me and Montreal want in this vein is like we're not asking for things that are called dungeons. Like we're not saying it has to be like, oh, there's got to be a fire dungeon and there needs to be 8 of them. It's like no, like, but we want something that feels more like a dungeon, like the Deku Tree or the Dodongo Cavern or things like that. Like like it's frustrating because I just like that is not really those the divine beasts are not that in Breath of the Wild in my opinion. Like they're just not, they don't satisfy that component of what I'm looking for. Because the first one is like, to be frank, the first one's the only one I ever actually got to. But it just wasn't, dude. It's just this giant open thing. Like there's a couple puzzles where you need to figure out how to get up to the top to fight the boss battle, but it's not that. It's just not that interesting overall. Um, so we'll see what they have here. I don't feel like I'm not. I mean, I haven't seen any kind of shrine facsimile so far in what they've shown. But looking at this gameplay video, though, there's a lot of new mechanics.
yeah, yeah,
Somebody in the comments actually said, like, did I ever think Zelda would become like the best physics simulator in gaming? No, but it's like it is weird that this is kind of where this series is now because it's funny. They have all this weird shit, dude, that you can do with this game, and there's a lot of like funny physics interactions in the game. But um, So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if I'm going to get it right at launch, especially if I decide I want to go back and beat the first one or not. But it's it definitely has my interest peaked a little bit more than I thought it would. The combat though, I mean, like the combat looks the same. Like it doesn't look like they really changed a whole lot there, which is disappointing because that is one of my biggest criticisms with Breath of the Wild is that the combat in a modern gaming is not it's just not up to snuff in what a game should be, like an action game. But um yeah, I should probably temper my expectations there, I guess, at this point. So
Yeah, I already did. I just accepted that. Um, the combat's always going to be base Zelda. They're never going to do anything like above that, and I understand why. Because I really think Zelda has a core audience that are like not hardcore combat fans and stuff like that. They just want to play the game, and that's okay. I don't mind that. But my thing is everything else surrounding the game needs to be fun, and
yeah,
that was the problem with me for Breath of the Wild. Like everything else wasn't fun; it was boring.
yeah,
Um, but now Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom looks like it's going to solve that issue with all the dumb shit you can do. Um,
yeah,
that so I'm looking forward to it. Uh, like I said, I'm gonna be really iffy on it. Uh, but then once I do play it, and if it is worth my time, then I'm gonna play it. I'm just
yeah,
gonna have to keep my judgments to myself and everything of
yeah,
that nature. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I think the first game, I remember the second time I played through it, I was um I was being way more meticulous than I was the first time. Instead of just running around wherever I wanted, I was like combing through each zone. I think I did like 5 areas, like 5 of the 12 zones before I put it down and didn't play again. And I was having fun playing it that way, but then I put it down and I never picked it back up. So what like was I really enjoying it that much? That's the kind of the weird element to it. But I think that's the other thing is I think the early game of Breath of the Wild is actually probably not that interesting. Like the areas are pretty boring. It's just a giant bunch of giant open fields and like huge mountains and there's just not a lot of interesting shit going on. So that's another possibility is like we didn't get deep enough to see like the other like the deeper areas like the snowy mountainous areas and the desert area and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's why part of me wants to go back and maybe try it out to kind of experience those areas a little bit more and see some of those deeper mechanics that I never really interacted with in the first time playing through the game. So but we'll see. I mean, we're about a month out from this game coming out, so um, it'll be uh, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm sure it's going to do great. Like you said, I'm pretty sure it's getting to fucking 10 everywhere. So we will certainly follow it. But all right, Montreal. We had one listener question from Dat Dude today, and I will read it off and see what you think here. So he asks, if your companion came to you and told you they want to get into gaming as much as you, what are 3 games you think, based on their personality, would be a good place for your companion to start?
Um. Uh. Gaming wise, that's a good question. I saw the question, but I didn't prepare for the question. But I did see the question. So
Yeah.
like, which is interesting because like Deanna plays video games sometimes. Um, I mean, she liked Breath of the Wild. She liked that type of game. She liked another game called Spirit Fair. Spirit Fair. It's like a 2D side scrolling game. I think she just likes games that are bubbly.
Yeah.
Uh, so like I would probably recommend to her like Stardew Valley, maybe like a Harvest Moon type game. Um, The Sims, maybe Breath of the Wild. She loved that game. I didn't even
Tell you,
recognize.
Rise of 3.
I don't know about that. Uh, uh, I don't know. She just likes those games where she can do whatever she wants or whatever. But also like has a structure to it. So I don't know. I would say Breath of the Wild, maybe a Super Mario game. I don't know which one. Um, fuck. She doesn't like my complicated games. Like she watches me play Xenoblade, and she's like, "What the fuck, Montrell, is this shit?" And I'm like, "The greatest shit ever." So she doesn't like that shit. Uh, but she does like puzzle games. So she
Yep.
does like to watch me play like Resident Evil, for instance, because it has puzzles in it. Uh, damn. So what's a good puzzle game? There are a ton of good
Um,
puzzle games.
Professor Layton. That might be too hardcore though.
Yeah.
Those puzzles are like fucking legit, bro. Like they're gonna literally ask you like math equations and shit.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, but yeah, if speaking of, if we're talking like just genres, like maybe like puzzle games, um, maybe some. Actually, you know what? I would recommend to her Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time. I'm not going to recommend uh Majora's Mask to her, but I will recommend Wind Waker. Those would be my three games I recommend to her.
Okay.
I'll keep her in that stratosphere,
Yeah.
and then have her branch out from there.
Yeah.
Oh, and
So
maybe like maybe
yeah.
Kirby's Dream Land. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, my wife refuses to play video games. Basically, so this question for me, I there's no answer really. She used to play games when she was younger, but um she quickly realized how dangerous they were as a time absorbing hobby,
Mm,
and has basically sworn off them ever since. So I've tried to get her into things before, and it's never taken. She's just not interested. So I don't really have an answer as a result. Like I know there's games she would like, like I think a lot of the more story driven kind of casual adventure games I think she would enjoy. But she's just not interested in playing them at all. So, I've given up on this quest a long time ago and just kind of accepted that, it's not something she's going to partake in until probably until we're way older. It might be something she might have the patience for then, because having a job and everything, everything in our life, like it's just not something she wants to fit. So, um, which I totally understand it. I support her in it, so it's fine. But yeah. So I don't really have an answer, unfortunately, to this question. This is specifically, she's just not interested. If I ever try to ask her to watch me play a game, if she comes and watches, I have about a minute before she walks out of the room bored. so so yeah. But yeah, that's it. So all right, Montreal. We're done. We don't have any other news or topics to discuss. Is there anything you want to talk about before we go today?
uh, no, I think we talked about it during the podcast. Developers and all that. Where I said my piece. I mean, you really didn't say anything. You just let me rant. But yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't know. I did tweet out earlier today. I'm just tired of the politics in video games and stuff like that, and it's very draining. Um,
Yeah, I think the reason I didn't say much is because I have been off Twitter for months now, like pretty hard. I really don't go on it very much anymore. And man, I don't even think about this shit. And it's nice. I'm just chilling, like I'm not even part of this discourse really. So when I come on the podcast, I don't even have like there's nothing been I haven't really like I'm not even influenced by any of this stuff, at all. So it's like I don't know.
well,
You're
it's not
you're
even
just
just like Twitter. It's just like in video games in general. There's like a whole political conundrum, and it's just like, bro, can I just
yeah.
play my video games without somebody getting offended about something? So I
Hmm.
don't know.
Yeah,
But yeah,
no, I
no,
I get you.
yeah. Besides that, I don't really have anything else though.
All right, fair enough. Well, then let's close out this episode. So, if you like this episode, please like the show, review the show, and subscribe to the show on whatever feed you're listening to it on. And please share it with your friends. If you'd like to interact with us on Twitter, you can do so at iTrap for the Hokage for Montrell. That is the number 4, not the word. I'm at Thundernut01, and the show is at the Player's Take. If you'd like to send us a question, you can do so on Twitter, or you can send us an email to the Player's Take01 at gmail.com. And that is going to be it for us this week, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week.